What worked well for us last year was our morning assembly each morning, and we would introduce a topic, or that would be the kind of topic for the week in morning assembly. And then circle worked extremely well for us. We did circle at various times, but we definitely made sure we had circle every Friday afternoon. And Friday we would talk about, reflect on the concepts, that sort of deal, but then also just those silly questions that we had talked about before, just to get to know the kids. And then that was also the day that we gave out awards, student of the week for behavior, that kind of thing, and so that was what really worked for us real well.
Okay, and the follow-up question was, what did you see a difference in the kids in the first year, last year, as you're going through this?
As a staff, we set a goal that we wanted our students to want to be at our school by the end of the year, that we wanted them to feel like that this was their school, some ownership to that. And they scoffed at us early and just thought, that's stupid, I don't want to be here ever. And by the end of the year, we had several of our kids that said, I can't wait to get back next year. This is my school. This is where I want to graduate from. This is where you all take care of us, and that sort of thing. And so, and even recently, I dropped by football practice yesterday and saw a couple of our students who get to play football, and they ran up to me during water break just to say hi and all that stuff, and just because of those relationships that we had formed. And so circle was pretty tough early, and it got a lot better and a lot more, and most of that had to do with the team building games and a lot of the stuff that we had to do to make them feel like they were a part of something bigger than themselves, and that we as a unit really worked well. And the Mid-South group coming in twice a week, working with our kids in groups, really helped. So I will say that one of the things that, and it's because Mark is such a smart guy, one of the things that we struggle with a little bit is the comprehension level of the curriculum. And in the average reading level, we're a grade 6 through 12 school, but our average reading level is somewhere between 3rd and 5th grade, and even 6th through 12. So that's with half of them being in high school and half of them being in junior high. And so some of those things we had to really slow down, and kids can get overwhelmed, and if you don't have the grit, you don't have that mindset, it's easy to be a quitter than a gritter, and so it sometimes got a little bit difficult when we were asking to reflect and think about it. It's like, I don't even know what that word means, forget that, I'm not doing that today.
I don't know, and you probably will know how to do this one. I was in a classroom, Google Classroom, but it had nothing to do with actually the Google Classroom. But they talked about Google Forms and stuff. And Lesia, is that
Lisa.
Lisa, because you were saying that students struggled with written activities, and this would go along with that.
We're at the same school.
Okay, you can talk into your phone, and it'll write it. But you can also get that to send it to a Word or to a Google Word document. If you will look into that and help them out, that might help you out a lot, because then they don't have to sit and type it, and because if they're like me, my computer, I hit this pad and it went back, now what did I say? And I forget how to do that because I can't do apps on my phone because, never mind. But anyhow, there's a way they could talk into their phone or into some kind of device so that it's a Google document and they can talk and it'll type it up for them. I don't know if that would help
I
you
used to have
guys.
some talk to text software years
Years ago.
And so, yeah.
And I know because we have those microphones that you could talk into on the computer, but there's one, it's an app on a phone or something, so if you could figure that out, that might help a lot.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
What didn't work? I just heard what worked.
With him? What
Yeah, that was-
like but besides the age
Their
group? By the way, let me
comprehension
just,
level.
Just the reading levels
That was a struggle. The other thing that didn't work goes back to what we talked about before. That finally now we have this course code that we're going to be able to say you're getting credit, you're getting a grade for doing this work. And so when we ask about reflective journal, even if they understood the concept, we couldn't get them to write much, right? We couldn't get them to really do the workbook much because what do I do this for? Why do we have to bring a pencil to assembly today? I'm not getting it. Is this for a grade? Is this for a grade? And so that was one of the things that didn't work for us very well.
now, let me give you the other end of that. Hot Springs Community School has been doing this for 8 years. We have no trouble with that because the culture is there, okay? But it takes you a while. And I was telling Corey, I told all of you guys last year, it's not going to happen in a year. You have to try to build a culture. Now, some of you say, well, we don't have the same kids there, and some of you don't have. I know Cabot rotates theirs every 6 weeks, so it's a little difficult. But in building that, now he's got 3 or 4 that are coming back that can kind of help that, and you're going to see a difference, and you're going to see something that's being built. The one question I have about ALE so many times is that why won't you let a kid stay there for a while? And everybody, including Harvey, says, well, we want to get them in, we want to get them fixed and put them back in the mainstream. Actually, I'm not so sure that a lot of these kids just need to make a commitment to at least a year, and then after that, if they want to be an ALE, they can. Yeah, I'm not going to change the whole ALE, but I'm just saying that's to me that they can begin to build something. You see that camaraderie, which is what a lot of those kids need. They need that anyway.
I agree, and that's why we set out with that goal at the beginning of the year, and that's why we're welcoming those students, that even though they may have met their student action plan, there's nothing in the rules and regs and the law that says they must transition back. They have the opportunity to transition back. You can have a meeting and see if they want to, but if their parents or if the student themselves says, you know what, I'd rather this is working for me, I'd rather stay right here, there's nothing that says by law that they have to transition back. If you determine that their least restrictive environment is your school, then that is where they can be educated all the way through until graduation.
You
My
have
parents begging to keep their kids at our school.
Yeah.
They said, hey, they're staying out of trouble, we know, but we only have 30 spots from 7th to 12th grade, but we have 12 coming back, so that means 18 kids can come in, that's 12 others. I mean, you can look at it both ways.
Well, you say you have 30 spots, maybe you need more room.
Yeah, well, that's the
Okay.
superintendent thing. Yeah, we.
Well, I
Question.
understand.
You said you went by and saw some of your kids that were in football. Are your kids that are in ALE allowed to participate in school
They're
events?
supposed to,
By law,
by law.
by the
Do you
regulation.
know that Cabot doesn't let them?
But we didn't either, but now they're telling us that we need to, so we're.
Ours does, but I knew, because I was at Cabot for 5 years, Cabot doesn't allow
When the
it.
ALE
That's why they
person
want to
comes
get out of there, because they can't go to school events.
By law, guys, they've got to.
Non-punitive, in a non-punitive environment, they have to have access to everything that every other student. Now, look, they have to earn it. Now, look, they have access to it. They have to earn it in my building. Okay, you have to earn it. You have a certain level of behavior that we expect, and if you're not participating in an athletic event, but you want to go to the game, then that's that Friday circle, okay? We let you know that you've met the expectation for the week, you have so many of the expectations, these markers that we have, and here's your certificate. Now, you still gotta pay to get in, but here's your certificate, you have permission to go to the game. And so we have them earn it, but they are supposed to have access to all of those things, including assemblies, et cetera. It's all in the regs. You can find it on the ADE website, it's really easy to get.
How many of y'all in your ALEs are people actually, that they've tried some kind of intervention before they even get into ALE? Yeah, I'll promise you, most of them don't.
If you call.
How many-
Get sent off.
Do what?
I said maybe if you count getting sent off.
Well, you can't count that.
No.
You can't count.
Discipline does not count as intervention. Bill, can I ask that question? Can I just ask that question real quick,
Yes.
if you don't mind? How many of you have actually got on the website, or you have a copy of the rules and regs from the State Department for ALE? You've known them and you've read them and all that stuff. If you're an alternative school, how many of you are alternative schools in here?
Part of what Harvey and I have talked about is having part of SEL as being the intervention before
Yes.
they go.
Absolutely.
My magic wand that I say needs to happen on all the schools is that SEL needs to start at kindergarten and go all the way through 8th grade, every day, with everybody, not just with ALE. And then from 9th grade up, then it can be put in different areas and a depth put to it. But until we do that, then trying to find this in interventions may be the best way. You've got people like Austin Independent School District, Dallas Independent School District is not there yet, but they're working with it. You've got Las Vegas, you've got some in California, you've got Massachusetts, and these folks, guys, have begun to find that it's best to start these guys really young, be consistent all the way through it, and then hit some heavy stuff when they start in the 8th and 9th grade. What?
The way you said Massachusetts is wrong, and I just was laughing inside. And with me, we shared a moment.
I also share Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, there's
Massachusetts.
not a T in that.
There's two of them.
I say
There's
that.
an N.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
That's why my child's at home.
Shoot us everywhere.
Bill, remember your social emotional learning here. Okay, no, but thank you. So, okay, no,
I didn't say
no.
anything
So what
until
about you guys in Conway? What'd you do? What worked? What didn't? Pass over the deal. Do you have it? Where's the?
It ran out of batteries. I have a second microphone though.
Okay.
The curriculum found was very useful. It helped give us some of the things that we see with our students and some of the things that the students were dealing with. It gave us those labeling that we should like, so we knew what to teach. And so that was really helpful with like the workbook. The workbook could help us go through that, break it down that way. Also, our problem, and I enjoy the curriculum so much from reading it in myself and then being able to find out those concepts and applying those to our students. But when I come to handing them the things that I just read and was like, got all excited about, they had difficulty, like he said, comprehending it. And so it was just that they were on a different level. And so breaking it down, slowing it down, and then having the teachers find that they had time enough to slow it down to whatever level they need it at was our difficulty. So, I mean, the curriculum was our success and at the same time sort of our difficulty.
The solution to that possibly is that the two ladies at Charleston that are not here today because of some things, but they are actually rewriting the curriculum for middle school. So it might be that some ALEs would want that curriculum. They've got it to where it's at a level between 4th and 6th grade, which would be the reading levels would probably be, I'm not sure how much they're trading the reading levels, but they're looking at different videos, they're looking at different, so they're pulling that to where we will actually have a middle school curriculum. They'll stay ahead of the game. They're not finished with it, but they'll stay ahead so that as you're going through that, if y'all are wanting the middle school curriculum, then we can get that to you.
I was gonna say the hardest thing for me writing this was that there wasn't much information because SEL is new, and so finding like something talking about compassion that's not like either way too low or just like way too, I don't know. I told you when I was looking at the mindfulness part of the curriculum. Oh my gosh, I'd tell you I'd find some kooky stuff, and I didn't want it. I didn't want to. First of all, because Dad said earlier, you don't want to put Buddhism in schools, especially in Arkansas, because we have a lot of Christian influence, and that's just gonna immediately set off flags. Be like, you're teaching Buddhism in my school? No, and that's not what That's not what we're trying to do with mindfulness. We're taking the academic form of mindfulness in that you just slow down, say, I see my emotions, but I'm separating myself, like we're saying, separating the emotion from the action, and that's what mindfulness is so good at doing. Is just saying like, yes, I'm angry, but why am I angry? Am I angry because of this reason, or am I angry because 2 years ago something happened and that I have never been resolved? And so that just helps separate everything, every action related thing from your actual emotion, because you don't want to tell them not to be angry. You can't say you shouldn't be angry, but you do want to tell them don't go hit that person. And so that's what, but it was also so hard to find because this stuff is all so new that everything being written right now is all academic, like high level academic, that I'm sitting there reading. I'm like, I'm getting tired reading it because it's so high level, and I couldn't find really that level of for high school yet.
Now, let me stop you and tell you two back here, both of y'all, because both of y'all have kids that are multi-age, classrooms. That's actually a plus. Whereas all this time we have told, you hear things called age appropriate. Well, that's baloney, okay? I'm just telling you. Because where kids grow IQ is where they are challenged. Now, if it's way so far over their head that they can't deal with it, they get frustrated, that is an issue, and in that way you have to be careful with that. One of the things that you can do, let me back up and say this. Those kids that are in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and you're really looking at a 9th grade maybe curriculum, or you've got some that are reading on the 4th, 5th, and 6th, it may be that you have to do what I did today, and that I did not have y'all read anything on victimization. I just said, here's what it is. And then we went right into it. You can talk through it, give the videos, but have them read very little.
And some of the videos that we have in there, I have a lot of them. I picked 2 videos, and they have questions for each video. And then I have what I call teacher resources. Those teacher resources are really for your discussion. You can show them to your students, but some of the stuff was pretty elevated, and it's really so it kind of gives you a solid basis. Like,
And
okay,
that's
I
what
never
Christy
really
did.
thought
She
about
got
that.
involved in that and liked it, and it's helped me.
It's helped me.
I don't want to cut you off there, but we're going to be talking about
Yeah,
this a
that's
little bit later. So for the new people, they're kind of blank because they don't know what we're talking about. Okay, so good, very good. Sheridan.
One of the things that did work well, like what Corey said, was the influence of circle. I had a couple of students that were real standoffish. I don't know whether they were cute or they were legitimately, withdrawing from circle. But it took them a few weeks, and then you couldn't get them to be quiet. And it works. The other thing, on the flip side, that did not work at all was if a student doesn't want to do an assignment, they don't have to. They can take a 0 and let the grades motivate. That was terrible, because that is the dream for these students to just exist and not do anything. It's kind of like, oh, you mean that I don't have to do any of this and you'll just give me a 0? And that's it. There's no write-up. There's no nothing. It's just I don't get to. Yeah, I don't have to do it. That's amazing. I'll give me 0s across the board, and I'll sit here and just waste space. And so that didn't make it. Is there anything else I had to cover?
Good and bad.
What's that? Good, bad.
Well, I would say this year for you guys that part of the issue will be to build relevance. And not only will you have grades this year and you can actually have class, but how do you build relevance with your responsibility? Could be bringing somebody in from the outside that talks about people that they get in their business that are not responsible and that are fired. It could be from videos. It could be from a lot of different kinds of things. But spending that time in building relevance is going to be very, very important. We're going to talk about that just a little bit later today too. Okay, so what else? Who else had programs wanted to say something about it? Anybody from last year?
I kind of came in halfway through the year and when, and I'm on the mental health side of things. And something that I was able, because you were talking about the mindfulness aspect of it, and you mentioned that some of the things are kind of kooky and they're not necessarily willing to buy into. Sometimes I found that some of the exercises worked, some of them I could modify to their interests. It just kind of took a little bit of wiggle room. But I was able to just modify like specific exercises. And knowing the group that we have, I knew that some things were gonna work and some things weren't. Like the meditation. I can't get them to, I don't want to say can't. I struggle with trying to get them to do like traditional type of meditating. However, I was able to get them to do some meditating while, like, quiet time while doing art with certain things going on. So it was just kind of being able to take those and kind of steer them where those kids specifically were.
And I'm gonna talk, like I said, I'm talking tomorrow, my big thing tomorrow, and guys, I wrote this. You all, most of you, or all of you, went to school for teaching, and I never want to sit back and tell you how to teach your classrooms. You know your classrooms better than I ever could. So, when I hear you tailored it to your classroom, that's exactly what I wanted when I wrote it. Because I was like, when I was in class, or when I was in high school, I learned by writing. Like, I have to write everything down. I may lose that piece of paper, but I'll remember it because I wrote it down. And I didn't always have time because they would be talking for you to hear it. They wouldn't be talking for you to write it down. And so that always frustrated me. And so when I was writing this, I was like, how many different learning styles there are. I want the teacher to be able to say, here, I'm giving this to you in several different ways, and the way that you learn best, you will receive it. And like I said, we're going to talk about this more tomorrow, but please, if you see it and you're like, I don't really want to change anything, don't change it on the paper, but please take it and do whatever you have to help your students, because that's what the real message is that it's your students who need it. It's not us who need them to hear what we want them to hear. We need them to, become emotionally healthy.
When we started this whole thing, we started it by having a subject. So we said, okay, we're going to talk about victimization. So every different teacher had a different day. And they would just come up and so we would have to do our own research, our own whatever we wanted to, and then we would teach that. The next day, the next teacher would kind of build on that. But we did that for about 3 years. We did have some curriculum, and then we said, well, I think it's time we probably write this down and make it a little bit easier. So now we do have it, but it still gives us the flexibility to be able to head in a different direction, and that's what we hope that this will do for you.
If y'all need some help modifying his lessons, let me know. I've been doing it for 2 years now.
Well, the one that sticks in my head the most is we were doing walking meditation, okay? And we read, because we have the luxury of having a big open space, which I think is awesome. But we started out, and it was like, how far can we get without talking? And we're trying to be mindful. And somebody yells out, why are we doing this kindergarten stuff? And one of our probably more emotionally intelligent high schoolers said, kindergartners can walk quietly in a line. And I paired that with, the water in the cup activity, and you're moving it around and then filling it up. And they may not have grasped it necessarily in that part, but pairing it with the other activity, they were able to kind of grasp the concept a little bit more.
And I don't know, I haven't done a lot of research on, neuroscience. I don't know everything about how the brain works, but what I have read says that, like, our brains are naturally hardwired to think or to feel a certain way, think a certain way, whatever. When we have external trauma happen to us, it affects how we receive that information. But, and I know most of you have probably heard of exposure therapy. When you just put that on them, it naturally corrects the rewiring. And so it's not so much that you're having to put the wires together, you're just having to clear out all the stuff that they've gone through, and then the wires will naturally get back together. And it's crazy how our brains work. I knew a little bit about psychology before, and obviously I knew about psychology, but I knew about behavioral psychology. But going through this has just blown my mind. I'm like, oh, well, that's why you do that, and that's why you have that emotional response, and that's why it leads to you doing all these things. And it's just crazy how our brains work. But the things that the activities are really good because it does give you kinesthetic things that you can get up and do, and it while they're moving, they still get in their brain, even subconsciously, they get the lesson. It's crazy how this stuff works, but it really is. Amazing.
I have brought some of these lessons into like science, where the scientific method.
Mhm.
You have a problem. Now, use your observations. What do you do next? You cuss out the teacher. What happens? And then in conclusion, are you going to do it again? Well, so we go back and we will use their problems. And one kid came up to me later, when the first time I taught, and said, "I have a problem. I can't stop drinking." And that was, out of class, but he started recognizing, when we use potential and kinetic energy, potential is what you have inside of you. Do you want to bring it out? And the kids will understand it. When I'm teaching science, I can also teach a lesson, and I've learned that. And different types of energy, is it radiant energy, thermal energy? And you can bring in these lessons even in a scientific.
And the research parts I really tried to connect to other classes. So if we're talking about depression, I say research what's happening in your brain if you have like clinical depression, and that is able to use in another classroom, but it also is tells them, because a lot of the time they don't know what's going on. I've had it for a few years, and I didn't know what it was. I just thought I was like down. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what it meant to have depression. I was just depressed. I thought that was natural, and it's not. So you can help them understand by saying, hey, this isn't just in your head. This isn't just, well, sometimes it is, but this isn't just
But it's a real thing in your head.
It's a real thing in your head, but it's not like you're not, if I say, you're having problems being nice, or being kind, there's a real thing going on in your body that's happening in your brain that's stopping you from being compassionate, and you have to go through things that train you to not have that response. Because I have a natural response to be critical, and in my head I have to stop that and not say something, not say what I want to say, but say that's not empathetic, that's not compassionate, and that actually forces me to be more empathetic by just stopping myself and saying that's not right. It makes me want to be emotionally want to be kinder. And so okay.
But Mark, what's great about that, just real quick, talking about cognitive science and the brain and all the other things that you were doing, what's great about that is if we think about our brain as an inherently lazy thing, and that's what it is. It's hardwired a certain way, and these impulses, these electrical signals go down the easiest path of least resistance, okay? And so cognitive science says that we create pathways, or our brain is already created with pathways that are default. I'm default to be sarcastic. I am default to be sarcastic. Not me, but some people are. And so your brain is naturally lazy. That's the default. What we have to do through these activities and through understanding the growth mindset is we can teach our brain to create other pathways, and we utilize those pathways, and the more we use those, these don't go away, but if we create a broader street for the impulses to go, for our thoughts to go through, then our brain will naturally, automatically take that path the next time out, and that's how the brain grows.
Did y'all do the lesson on mindfulness?
Yeah.
Okay, the mindlessness thing, teaching you about how your brain creates that video, that first video on mindlessness. It says our brain creates shortcuts. And so if I wake up and I go through the same routine every day, I'm effectively not making my own decisions. Right. I'm just doing something because I've always done it. And so if I get to when it comes to problem solving, if I've done the same thing every way, I don't know how to. If it's a little bit different, it throws me off completely, and I shut down and I can't do anything else because my pathway has been cut. And so mindfulness teaches you to to not judge yourself, to say like, this didn't work, but I didn't fail. I just learned how to not do it. So, and then you can go on from there and try again. So that's what the cool thing about mindfulness is. And there's so many things. I think that has the most lessons out of all of the things, because I was sitting there and I was like, here's another thing I can say about it, because it's just so cool.
You saw the movie Click?
Yes.
That's-
How he puts himself on autopilot. You're right. Like I said, mindfulness is one of the best ones, and that one we had to cut down because it has 8 lessons, and you can't take 8 weeks of just mindfulness. You can, but we just wanted to have.
Well, you're actually taking a year full of mindfulness.
You could. Yeah, I mean, like teaching it.
I know, but I mean, you're really, because that's something that, I mean, all day long, you ought to be saying, was that very mindful? Were you mindless on this, or the whole thing?